God's blessings to everyone. This is a DGH Radio.com news and information news update for the United States Virgin Islands, and I'm reporter DKS reporting the news for Sunday, October 19th, 2025, covering the latest developments from across the United States Virgin Islands. Leading off with business and tourism, operators of the popular floating taco concept say they're on track to launch a St. Thomas location near Lindbergh Bay in November. The St. Thomas team described a low-impact, day-only operation with preset hours, a cap on the number of boats allowed to moor, and support barges for supplies and waste removal so nothing enters the water. Plans include a no-plastic policy, recycled water systems, and tight alcohol service controls, plus a shuttle to reduce small craft congestion. They emphasized local hiring and training and said the site plan preserves a buffer from swim areas and sensitive habitat. If approvals stay on schedule, the debut could coincide with holiday travel, adding a unique outdoor dining draw for residents and visitors while setting higher standards for marine operations. Public safety on St. Croix is again in focus after a deadly late-night shooting inside a bar in a state profit. Dispatchers received a call just before midnight. Officers arrived to find a man unresponsive inside the establishment, and emergency personnel reported no signs of life. The Major Crimes Unit is canvassing for witnesses and nearby surveillance footage. No arrest or motive had been announced by the weekend. Police are urging those who were near the location to come forward or provide tips through Crime Stoppers. Community leaders are calling for consistent patrols in nightlife corridors, better lighting in parking areas, and cooperation between venue owners and law enforcement to deter retaliatory violence. Also on St. Croix, detectives are investigating an early morning armed robbery at a Frederiksted business. According to preliminary reports, two masked individuals entered around 6:30 a.m., brandished firearms, and demanded cash before fleeing on foot. No injuries were reported. Investigators are reviewing security video and processing the scene for evidence, and they're asking nearby businesses and residents to share any footage from the early morning hours. The incident has reignited concerns among West End merchants about targeted thefts during opening and closing periods. Health and Emergency Readiness, the director of the Virgin Islands Fire and Emergency Medical Services, told senators the agency faces a severe staffing crisis across both districts. Chronic vacancies are forcing extensive overtime, risking burnout and mistakes. The primary driver, officials said, is non-competitive pay and benefits compared to mainland departments, which pulls away experienced responders and complicates recruitment. Proposed remedies include salary adjustments toward market parity, aggressive local and stateside recruitment, and upgrades to equipment and facilities to improve morale and response times. Lawmakers pledged to review budget requests and consider legislative solutions, stressing that reliable fire and EMS coverage is foundational to community safety and disaster preparedness. Turning to utilities, WAPA officials told lawmakers that about $4.5 billion is obligated for grid recovery and resilience, but they estimate hurricane damage and modernization needs at roughly $11 billion. About $900 million has been spent to date. Plans include composite pole replacements, undergrounding in priority corridors, and early designs for microgrids on St. Thomas and St. Croix. Battery storage is planned to support St. John alongside the submarine cable. Senators pressed for outage reduction metrics, feeder-by-feeder timelines, and a public project tracker to prevent schedule slips that could trigger federal clawbacks. Separately, WAPA's governing board approved a preventative maintenance contract for key generating units at the Randolph-Harley and Estate Richmond plants, aimed at shoring up reliability as the season's late storms remain a risk. Officials noted that proactive maintenance is far less costly than emergency repairs and widespread outages, and said work will begin promptly to get critical units into peak condition. Construction and permitting. A Senate panel advanced legislation creating a paid, expedited track for building permits, with fees tied to project complexity and revenue dedicated to staffing or supervised third-party reviews. The goal is to chip away at backlogs without disadvantaging residents or small contractors in the standard queue. The Planning and Natural Resources Commissioner did not oppose the concept, but asked lawmakers to define target turnaround times, clarify cost recovery based on final valuations, and address a potential federal funding cliff for current positions in 2026. Technology upgrades are also under review, including tools to screen plan sets for completeness so staff can focus on code compliance. Lawmakers signaled that guardrails around equity, reporting, and service standards in the regular line are essential before a floor vote. Transportation and visitor experience. A St. Thomas Taxi Town Hall put safety, accountability, and digital payments front and center as cruise calls are expected to climb next year. Speakers pressed for consistent inspections, better coordination with Port Authority staff at busy terminals, and wider acceptance of cashless payments to cut disputes and speed boarding. Ideas on the table include standardized signage, posted fares at key pickup points, and pilot programs for digital queue management. Industry representatives asked for streamlined medallion processes and improved lighting and security at high traffic stands. Organizers want a collaborative plan before the winter season, paired with training for new drivers and public tracking of wait times and complaint rates to measure progress. Economic diversification. Government House has proposed modernizing zoning so microbreweries and micro distilleries can operate as conditional uses in select districts, especially where agriculture can supply inputs. Supporters say small-scale, tightly regulated production can build value chains and foster agritourism and local branding. Planning leaders stress public notice requirements, community input, and environmental safeguards, with operating conditions tailored to hours, waste handling, traffic, and noise. If passed, rulemaking would set evaluation criteria, including fire safety and federal alcohol production compliance, with an emphasis on partnerships between producers and local growers. Election administration. A Superior Court judge on St. Croix dismissed a complaint seeking to bar the Board of Elections chair from presiding and to remove him from the board. The court denied a temporary restraining order and found insufficient grounds to proceed, allowing the chair to continue in his role. The ruling reduces near-term uncertainty as the board continues routine voter roll maintenance and statutory deadlines. Plaintiffs could still consider an appeal or legislative remedies, but scheduled work continues without leadership interruption. Education. The Department of Education announced a phased rollout of a new teacher evaluation framework this school year. The system uses multiple measures such as student growth indicators, peer review, professional development participation, and reflective portfolios to provide more constructive feedback and professional growth pathways. Initial pilots in both districts will inform refinements before territory-wide adoption. The department is conducting mandatory trainings for administrators and teachers, and union leaders express cautious optimism that the system supports development rather than punishment. Public health. A childhood diabetes prevention program launched at Eulalie Rivera K-8 on St. Croix, using a mobile unit for screenings and education for 4th and 5th graders, particularly those with risk factors. Clinicians are focusing on early detection, healthy eating habits, and family involvement, noting rising diagnoses among younger children and the territory's high obesity rates. Meanwhile, hundreds have registered for this month's breast and prostate cancer awareness walks, St. Thomas at Crown Bay Marina this Friday, and St. Croix on October 24th at Claude O. Marco School. Events that pair prevention messaging with survivor tributes, free screenings, and community outreach. On St. John, a Pinktober block party on October 25th in Cruz Bay will raise funds for patient support. Community and culture. The locally produced feature Fall premiered online tonight as part of the Film Over Gun Violence initiative. The release pairs screenings with discussion guides and youth programming designed to turn viewing into action, connecting teens and families with counseling, mentorship, and safe space resources. Advocates stress that credible messengers in the arts can open conversations where lectures fail, especially when programs are tied to tangible support. Healthcare infrastructure. The Office of Disaster Recovery awarded a pre-construction contract to begin designing the rebuild of St. John's Myra Keating Smith Health Center, which has operated from temporary facilities since the 2017 storms. Officials expect that a modern replacement will improve access, resilience, and continuity of care during emergencies. Heritage and environment. The territory finalized the creation of Maroon Sanctuary Territorial Park, 2,169 acres in northwest St. Croix, spanning forests, watersheds, coastline, and historic areas tied to the legacy of freedom seekers. Plans include trails and interpretive signage that connect ecological protection with cultural memory. Recreation and wellness. The St. Thomas Swimming Association has added sunrise lap sessions to the Red Hook pool schedule on Tuesdays and Thursdays, giving working residents more access to low-impact exercise at an affordable public facility. Regional security. The United States has stepped up military activity in the southern Caribbean with long-range bomber flights off Venezuela's coast and additional naval and special operations assets, part of an interdiction campaign against narcotics networks and a broader show of capability. Analysts say local impacts are typically limited to aviation and maritime advisories and Coast Guard tasking, but residents planning regional travel should keep an eye on official notices for sea and air training corridors. Civic participation. Residents in St. Thomas and St. John joined nationwide No Kings demonstrations over the weekend, rallying for democratic accountability, government transparency, and election integrity. The events were peaceful and included voter registration outreach, performances, and speeches, highlighting the role of civic engagement in sustaining institutions. Courts in Florida set a key evidentiary boundary in a case watched in the territory. A judge ruled prosecutors may introduce two prior alleged incidents in the sexual battery case against a former Virgin Islands senator, while excluding broader prior acts material. Jury selection is scheduled to begin this month with further motions and instructions expected before trial. These and other issues are of great concern within the islands. Let us know your thoughts by texting your comments to 1-315-898-1149. You can also join our WhatsApp group and get the news, weather, and other insightful information delivered right to your smartphone. To join, text JOIN to 1-315-898-1449. Please include your name in the text message. You will receive a call to verify your request. I'm your reporter, DKS, signing off for DGHradio.com. Remember, DKS and DGH, together we dream kindly, speak deeply, and give hope, because on DGHradio.com, the news never sleeps. Goodbye for now. Ciao.